My name is Keith Wild, and I am a senior software developer at Smart Technologies. In this presentation, I am going to show you how you can make your software application ink-aware by using the SmartBoard SDK. What does it mean for your application to be ink-aware? A user can write on your application with the SmartBoard pens or their finger, and ink will be drawn. Their handwriting can be saved in your application file either as ink, or if you have a handwriting recognition engine, it can be converted to typed text. The next time the user opens that file, they can see their old notes and continue their work. So the benefits of making your application ink-aware are integration with the pen tray events to determine if a user is writing on a SmartBoard interactive whiteboard with a pen, eraser, or finger. Draw smooth ink over your applications using high-resolution contact events. The ink layer will not come up over your application. Separate events from multiple boards can be received simultaneously through the SDK. And cross-platform versions are available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. So we will do two demos, and the first one will be using the C++ version of the SDK in a Windows C++ application. So the three main steps that we're going to go through are: first, to set up the Visual Studio project; second, create an instance of the SmartBoard SDK and initialize it; and third, to handle the events that we are interested in. Here we have a very simple Scribble application. If I just run it, you can see that you can just do some very basic drawing in it. And we'd like to hook this up to the SmartBoard SDK so that we can get make use of the color of the pen that the user is using and get smoother ink using the contact events through the SDK. So the first thing we need to do is set up the project file. First, we need to add the include directory of the SDK. So I installed it under Program Files, Smart Technologies, SmartBoard SDK, 10 SP6. And then inside there we have a DLL directory and an include directory. Alright, so that's our include directory that we need. Now we also need a library directory. From the same location, DLL, and then the lib directory. Alright, now we're also going to have to link to sbsdk.lib, and that sets up our project file. To make use of the SDK, we have to include the main header file, which is sbsdk2.h. We are interested in some events from the SDK, so we're going to need to derive our class from the sbsdk2 event handler. And now we need an instance of the SDK. Let us create an instance of it here. We are interested in the contact events, so we will implement the down, up, and move events, and we'll also show the use of the on pen and the on clear event messages. So now one other thing we need is we need to handle a Windows message from the SDK, and I will explain that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Alright, so now we go to the source file, mainform.cpp. So first we need to add to our message map the sbsdk new message, and we will handle that in on sbsdk new message. In on create, we are going to initialize the SDK. So we're going to use sbsdk attach with message wind. First parameter will be null because we don't actually want to attach a window just yet, but we are going to pass hwind in for the third parameter. And that's where we are going to receive this Windows message. And that's going to allow us to process all the SDK's events on our application's main thread. Then we're going to tell the SDK where our event handler is by calling set event handler. Now we need to implement our SDK message handler. And inside we just have to call SDK process data. For the contact events, we will add in handlers for on, X, Y, down, up, and move. So inside of each of these we just have to get the destination window for the event, find our view. Since this is a multiple document application, we can have multiple views, so we have to find the one that this contact belongs to. Then we just need to get the color from the SDK of the tool and the tool type, and we'll put this into a small class that I've created for convenience just to pass it on to our view. And inside the view is where all the drawing happens. Then we do the same thing with up and for move. For the pen event, we don't need to do anything in this application, but if we had a toolbar, say, that displayed the current pen's properties, we could update them at that point. We will use the onClear message, which is triggered by pressing a button on the smartboard pen tray, and we'll use that to clear all the ink. So now in our view, we need our SDK as well. I will get rid of some placeholders I had in here for our SDK tool class that I created just to make it convenient to pass tool information into the view. And it just wraps up the tool type, the color, and the pointer ID for that tool. So inside of the implementation of the Scribble view, and on create, we have to attach our window. This is what allows the smartboard driver software to know about your application so that the ink layer will not come up over top of it, and it also allows the smartboard driver software to know, depending on where the user clicks on the smartboard, whether the mouse events should be used or SDK events should be used. So here we just have to send the window handle by calling SBSDK attach. We just need to copy the DLL from the SDK into our directory for our sample application that we're writing. I just copied the SDK DLL into my Scribble sample applications directory. Now if we run it, I can pick up a pen from the smartboard and write in red ink. And that takes care of our C++ demo. Our second demonstration is going to be with a C# application. And again, I've broken it down into 3 main steps. First, we're going to use the Smartboard SDK COM wrapper library. We're going to create an instance of the Smartboard SDK and initialize it, and then handle any events we're interested in. So we're going to look at the code. This is if I run this Scribble sample, again, it's very much like I just showed you with the C++, except it's written in C#. You do some basic drawing, and again, we'd like to take advantage of colors of the pens and the higher resolution contact events. First, we need to use the COM wrapper library and the runtime interop services. And now we just need to declare our SDK and the SDK events. Now in order to get the window message from the SDK to to allow us to process all our messages off the application's main thread, we need to import a DLL and a register window message. So then we can call register window message with SPSDK new message, and that'll give us a message ID we can use. And we need to next set the style. That allows us to use notify message so that we can receive this message ID that we set up just a few minutes ago. Next, we need to create our instance of the SDK, and we need to grab the event handler so that we can now set up all the events, at least all the events that we are interested in. So we are going to implement the contact events, which is on X, Y, down, move, and up. And we are going to implement on pen and on clear. We need to attach our window through the SDK. So we will use SPSDK attach with message wind. We're going to pass it our window handle, and we're also going to pass the same window handle in the third parameter, and that's going to be where the window message that we set up right here, that's where that message will be sent to. So next we need to implement on notify message. So on notify message will allow us to handle that message that we have set up, and we need to call SPSDK process data. This allows all the messages from the SDK to be processed on our application's main thread, which makes our lives much easier. So now in any events that we receive from the SDK, we don't have to worry about threading issues. So a little further down, now we need to just implement our events. So I've got on X, Y, down, move, and up created here, and they're set up in a very basic way. Right now, the mouse events are just calling these and using them to just draw basic black lines through mouse input. What we can do, though, is this will process the contact events through the SDK, but we can also make use of the tool color and the tool width through the SDK to integrate with the pen tray on the smartboard. So the move and up are pretty much basically the same. We just take the points and create new ink strokes. So we need to implement on pen and on clear. I won't do anything inside of them in this demonstration, but for instance, if you had a toolbar that displayed pen properties, you could update those properties on the toolbar when this event was received. And when the pen tray on clear button is pressed, you could implement that by clearing all the ink in your application. So that should be it. If I run it. Now if I pick up the red pen and draw, we get red ink using the width from the properties that have been set up in the smartboard software. And this concludes my presentation on how to make your software application ink aware by using the smartboard SDK.